Frickin' Schmickens, who'd he ever beat? All right. The Grinch That Stole Wrestling, 1990. 'Twas the night before Christmas, 2 years after the bye, and the state of pro wrestling would bring a tear to your eye. We're changing the scripts, the New York Times quote had read. All the secrets were out, and pro wrestling was dead. All the grandiose visions of lights, glory, and fame, of million-dollar pro wrestling achieving national acclaim, had been supplanted instead by what the corporate world had borne, a farce of pro wrestling, deserving only of scorn. Oh, at first they had tried very hard, but they hired a VP who had little regard for the business to which so many others were committed. He knew not the first thing, but he would never admit it. When suddenly from the office there was such a big fight, they sent James E. Barnett to help out if he might. He returned with pale face and a trembling hand. Yet another of our bookers has been promptly canned. We'll depend on the champ, the few faithful did think. Ric Flair has saved many from a sea of red ink. Away to Charlotte they went with anticipation, knowing Flair could light fires under the whole wrestling nation. But the brains in Atlanta had closed the mine of gold. Who wants to see Flair? He's 10 years too old. Then what strange sight did our shocked eyes meet? But Jim Herd himself, his face red as a beet. With contracted hands given out to unknowns, we knew in a moment all our hope had just flown. And he ranted and raged, and he called out these names. On Funk, on Steamboat, on Warriors and Flair, on Midnight, on Cornette. Get the hell out of there! You must step aside for these faces that are new. We'll draw 20 million with this musclehead stew. The Clash ratings proved, believe you me, we can sell this green talent if the show is for free. As rain clouds dry up in the hot desert sky, the attendances dwindled, ratings began to die. TBS didn't sit still, no, they planned their attack. No blood, no violence, that'll get these crowds back. And even though Watts was a phone call away, they couldn't have that. Why, he'd get in the way. Because after all, as part of his deal, he'd want the fans to think wrestling matches are real. So into their skulls another notion did fly. We'll make sillier shows that all the kids will buy. Hence action the fans continued to crave. Up north it seemed Vince had dug a similar grave. When that cranky old herd found a foolproof new plan, he hired Moldy Oldie, wrestling's grumpy old man. Morale dropped lower, old cronies were brought in. Even with an old hand, it seemed no one could win. Whatever knack had been had way back when, by only for booking, had left him by then. The best to be done by that sarcastic old rat was a heel who pulled rabbits out of his scorpion hat. Anybody want to draw? Chip Burnham's trademark line was reduced to, here's 20, and a pitiful whine. The ship sank slowly with all hands on board while Nero Herd fiddled and Petrick looked bored. The potential of the venture slipped away like sand, butchered by businessmen who couldn't find their ass with both hands. And then the murder was finished at last of this business which boomed in the not-distant past. Every fan knew the words kayfabe, mark, and more. A few blamed the sheets, but promoters told millions more. But what of Jim Herd, you ask with a shout? Couldn't Petrick or Turner force the old Grinch on out? Sad to say, the world of corporate affairs seems to guarantee that he'll always be there. So raising his fist, cursing under his breath, and condemning Dave Meltzer to a horrible death, he was heard to exclaim as he flew to St. Louis, I should have stuck with pizza. Wrestling, phooey.
Well, there you go. Did you send one to Herd?
Oh, he heard about it.